It says we're live.
Yeah, lies. Let's see. Yeah. The wing dingies. Okay, so to offset my shirt, if you'd like to support us here, and a memorial fund for John's computer would be nice. Donate $5 in the memory of John's computer.
It's not dead.
Denial, just not just a river in Egypt.
Pining for the fjords.
No, my screen had to be replaced along with my battery, and it's like outrageously expensive, but not expensive enough to just buy a new one. So
if you like coffee,
Yeah.
and you want to support a coffee anthology, talk to these guys.
Yeah.
Really great coffee, really nice people. And as always, smartass t-shirts. Get your smartass t-shirts here. tinyurl.com among the leaves tees.
And yes, we're all broken today in one form or another.
No kidding. No kidding.
I did thanks to Stretch, one of my readers, put up a follow-up this morning to the research portal. He had a bunch that he's collected over the years for some of the stuff he and his wife did. So I added those to the list. And our interview with Fred Hughes came live this morning. So you can see how stupid we really look.
Yes, when we're being formally interviewed, we're not nearly as articulate as we are. I can say articulate, right? Articulate as we are right now.
Yeah.
You can say articulate. You just said it like 2 times in a row.
Yeah.
Just check.
Correctly.
Just check.
The problem is trying to think about what you're going to say before you say it, rather than just blah,
Yes.
like we normally do on here.
Yes. Yeah, there's a difference between improv, like we do here, and impromptu.
Yeah.
So
I caught myself looking up to the right while I'm trying to think before I
Mhm.
look back at the camera.
Yep.
So once again, break every rule. And since a lot of people want to know what you bought,
Oh, Women's Shelter in Dallas came through selling cheesecake to raise funds. And what the hell? It's a sopapilla cheesecake.
it's currently frozen.
It's
Very solid.
it's very solid cheesecake.
quit dinging the table.
So, Women's Shelter, what the hell? And sopapilla cheesecake.
And it's humid enough, it's leaving quite the moisture
Yeah.
trail.
Yeah, we have definitely got moisture in the air. It was drizzling rain this morning when I went out to take the
Mhm.
trash out.
It was drizzling earlier when I was fueling up like an hour ago, and then
Yeah.
it just
And when I went out to the VA to get my wrist checked this morning or this afternoon, it was still drizzling. So there is definitely humidity in the air.
It is very wet and hot and sticky out there. And still the soil in my garden beds is dry. So I'm standing out there watering in this, and I'm like, why am I?
You could walk a fish out there.
Yes.
No,
you
we're
could
not in
walk
Houston.
fish.
In Houston, yes.
Houston breathing through a wet blanket.
Oh, speaking of Houston, so my mom shared a really phenomenal video of the tornado in Iowa that happened in the last couple of days.
Okay.
These professional level storm chasers with drone footage and everything. That tornado was something else. So Mom had showed me that. So YouTube helpfully suggested a video about the Houston derecho from the 16th this month. And I was watching that, and it's really nice dash cam footage, like very, very clear dash cam footage. But the guy's captions are on point because he goes from light rain to medium rain to medium well rain, well done rain. And no, but it's just this poor guy. And just watching it go from the track, because I mean, he's in traffic, he's commuting home in Houston when the storm hit, because it evidently hit right at evening rush hour.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there yelling at the screen for him to get off the freaking road, which he did eventually do.
I caught one yesterday evening or this morning. One, I don't remember which, but it was an unedited one of the Iowa tornado, and it's from a couple of storm chasers.
Mm-hmm.
And they're driving along, and you can see they're driving, and the tornado's coming like this, and they're videoing, and then all of a sudden you hear a guy, obviously in the back seat, goes, "Would you just fucking stop? You're going to run us into the goddamn thing." And all of a sudden the picture goes, "Yeek."
Target lock.
Yeah.
Well,
The one of the wind farm blowing up.
yes, and that's probably the same one I was looking at, or very similar. They just like
Derecho-
paper toys.
Derechos love wind farms like fat kids love buffets.
Well,
Yeah.
no, this was the big tornado in
Yeah,
Iowa.
it's a tornado.
Even better.
But it exploded the blades.
Mm-hmm. Shredded them like confetti.
Yeah. But the thing that a lot of people missed in that is the fact that when that thing went over, you've got a couple of hundred gallons of oil now spread all over that
Mhm.
field.
Mm-hmm.
They'll never be able to plant anything in there again.
I don't know. Never is a long time, but yeah, they'll probably have to. It's going to be a hot mess though, because
But who's going to pay for it?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the wind farm's not going to, because act of God.
Yeah.
Yeah. The same video. I mean, that tornado was absolutely massive and spawning little
Yeah.
vortices off of the main tornado.
Yeah.
But there was one that I was curious about, and you might know the answer. It had ripped the roof off a barn, and then there what looked like smoke pouring out of the barn, just a huge plume of white. And I was like, I don't know if it's on fire.
No.
Or what?
That was either hay or grain.
Okay.
Or if it had a water, that would be water. If it ruptured a water line in there, it would be water.
No, not that amount. It
yeah,
was
not that amount. It was a lot.
It was a
Whatever
lot,
it was,
yeah.
It was a lot. You could see the water being pulled off the fields, though.
Yeah.
It was like clouds forming in reverse coming up off the ground from the force of the tornado sucking it up.
Yeah, David, all they have to do is remove the top foot or two of topsoil. Yeah,
It's a lot of topsoil.
that's a lot of
That's a lot
topsoil.
of topsoil, and then what are you going to do with it?
Now you're going to have to dispose of it as hazardous material.
Mm-hmm.
Who are you going to pay to do that? How much is it going to cost?
Yeah.
And, when you start adding up all those ands
Right. And there are things that you can plant that will help with remediation.
to a point, but
Well, yeah, exactly, to a point. But it's like you have to calculate the risks and evaluate how much it's going to help.
and you're
versus not being able to
realistically,
do anything at all. I mean,
if you remediate it, that's 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Well, there are bacteria you can spray on it, but if you want to incur the wrath of the EPA,
Yeah.
I mean, there are bacteria you can spread. You can spray because in Nigeria they were used to do it.
Yeah.
You can spray on oil and it.
Yeah.
Nom, 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 nom.
Yeah. Well,
And
there's bacteria that will eat literally anything.
The
Because
bacteria
that's
poo it leaves is actually apparently pretty good for the soil.
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah, it's now a brownfield site. Good point, Bill. That's exactly what it is.
Well, the other thing too was that the tornado itself was scraping so much off the ground that
Yeah.
goodness knows what was left.
Yeah,
So
there is a window up there. Yes.
there are two windows. One is wearing a shirt and one's not. One's a naked window.
Yeah.
It's over there next to the honey badger.
Naked window behind Jim. Yeah, naked window next to the quack bangs.
Yeah, we decided to put all those things out. So
Yeah.
They make for fun little background.
why not have a
Oh.
background?
We had a winner in the 50-word short story. Somebody's going to have to pronounce his name for me, or spell it because
Ben Ziegler.
Ben Ziegler. You around anywhere?
He's not actually on our subscribe.
He's
from
not.
Substack. He doesn't even know about all this part.
Yeah.
No.
But we can still out him.
Ben Ziegler is about to get a care package from the blanket fort.
Yeah. You know what he's getting? Oh, you should show him the present.
John's got to get the presents.
Yeah.
Finally getting rid of some of the stuff that got sent here. Huh? As everybody waits with bated breath, including me.
bated breath. So, Ben, you will be getting one lightly used fidget widget.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you, Jesse.
Oh, save that one for next.
Yeah, plus.
Uh-huh.
One Raconteur Press pen.
Mhm.
One archaic copy of Ghosts of Malta. And last but not least, a code ring.
A secret decoder ring.
So
Like I said, getting rid of the stuff that's been shipped here.
the lightly used fidget widget apparently is going away.
We have so many. It seems reasonable to share.
Well, and there will be another prompt. I was creating images for the prompt and then handing it over to our editor who runs the Substack. I don't know if we've outed him, so I'm not going to say it.
Mike.
Okay, Mike.
Mike.
So Mike got to pick from some postcard images, which I have to say was fun. I have missed generating postcard images. And there will be another competition, so keep an eye on the Raconteur Substack, and when you see the prompt, enter your 50-word short story submission. It will be voted on by the Rack Press staff, and you too could get a care package full of random weirdness from the blanket fort.
It's not going to be the same every time.
It will not be the same.
Yeah.
No. Also,
Friday's the next one.
Friday's that would be tomorrow.
if you're going to be at a convention where I am, no correction, if you're going to be at LibertyCon or Imaginarium, and you come up to me and you tell me which story in Goblin Market is my brother's, you will win something. I don't know what yet, but you'll win something. If you can figure out which story in Goblin Market is Chris's, and tell me at either LibertyCon or Imaginarium, not online, you have to come up in person, you'll get a wiffle duck.
That seems reasonable.
You just said you weren't going to tell them what you were going to give them.
Jesse had because I didn't have a clue.
And
Jesse
says wiffle duck.
Jesse answered
You'd
it
be
for me.
wandering around with a bag full of wiffle ducks.
Dan Skippy.
We have Mike. He can do it. Mike can port all that stuff away.
Yep. We'll put a backpack on Mike and stick it full of stuff. If you can tell me which story is, and you're right, I will give you a wiffle duck. Maybe with a top hat on it. Don't know yet. In other good news, Tangent Online, which has been reviewing science fiction and fantasy short stories for about 30 years, reviewed Giant Freaking Robots and did something that Tor has not been able to do, that Bane has not been able to do, that Daw has not been able to do. Giant Freaking Robots got a recommendation for every story in it.
That is outstanding
And
unusual.
it's first time ever. First time ever. And I'd like to publicly thank James L. Young, Dr. Young. He was the guest editor in that, and he picked some stories, and I would like to thank y'all for sending in stories that are so good that every one of them, for the first time in Tangent Online's history, every one of them got recommended.
Yeah.
That is y'all have no idea how wow.
We keep making these really interesting achievements happen.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Achievements I didn't know that we needed to do.
well, exactly. It's
Nobody
one of those
told
things
me
we're
this
not
was
anticipating. I mean, we've got our own standards for success, so where we consider that we've succeeded with a given anthology. But then we come up with these odd little things of the tangent review, and there's been other ones where it's just, that was really cool. We didn't realize we needed to do that. We wanted to do that, and here we are.
I didn't realize there was a milestone there that we broke.
Well, I did.
I'd have been trying to do it for now.
Because
A little competitive.
so I have to, it's kind of funny. So James got the email and forwarded it to me a couple days after he got it. And I did one of those what moments because I've followed Tangent for years and
Yeah.
actually know Dave and who runs it and stuff.
Yeah.
And so he says I did the Jurassic Park equivalent of grabbing him by the chin and turning his face and going, "Do you see that?" Because I was like, "What? You just said that 2 days later you sent me this," and I was like, "How dare you not tell me?" So yeah, it was definitely a moment, and it's definitely an achievement too, not to be taken lightly. So
Yeah, and if you want to go look at it, go to tangentonline.com and search for robots in the search block, and you can find it. John Van Stry has now has people calling him and trying to convince him that he needs to hire them to publish and promote the new book. Yeah.
Dude,
So
we promote your book without being paid.
Yeah.
Wait, are we supposed to be getting paid for that?
no,
John's a friend.
we do that
I'm
shit
teasing.
for friends, enemies, frenemies.
Teasing.
Speaking of which, we might as well name drop the book. It's Force Majeure.
Yeah.
And it's book 3 of the Wolfhound series.
Yes.
And
Kick-ass covers by somebody.
yes.
Yeah.
I love doing the covers
Yeah.
for these. I have so much fun with it. But it is just out. It is actually already ranking pretty high in Galactic Empire science fiction, which
Yeah.
is where Amazon has it categorized.
Well done,
And
John.
John has requested, if you do read it, to please give it a hearty review, because somebody decided they were going to leave a review almost immediately that contains spoilers, and he'd like to bury that one so that potential readers don't have to be confronted by a spoilerific review, which is not a nice thing to do.
Yeah. Well, the
No,
problem is
that's
if I review it, it never gets posted because he's a friend of mine.
Well, yeah,
Your review on something.
You do yours on the blog, or would you do recommendations?
No, he did.
on the
He
blog,
did an
which is
Amazon
important.
one that popped up.
What?
Yeah, you
One
did one
finally got through?
on one
Son
of
a
ours.
bitch.
One of ours.
So, but that's the other thing too, which is that we can promote for our friends, but leaving a review on Amazon for our friends isn't something we can do.
Yeah.
Y'all can do that.
Yes.
So, and if you do read a book,
And Dan is here.
yeah, if you do read a book, Dan
Ben.
Ziegler is not the same as Ben Ziegler.
Ben Ziegler.
Oh, okay.
Ben Ziegler. There's a G in there.
Yeah, you're right. Never mind.
Completely different people.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, which is if you read a book, leave a review, please,
Yeah.
because it shouldn't have spoilers in it.
That's
and
really
it
a
doesn't
dick
have
move.
to, and it doesn't have to be very long. It doesn't need to be
20
in
words.
depth. It doesn't
Yeah.
need to contain literary analysis, please. No. Um,
Word salad.
And the whole spoilers is really a dick
Yeah.
move.
Yeah, it is.
It is. And I'm like, I have read reviews of books that were basically a plot summary of
Yeah.
the entire damn thing, including the ending when you're looking at a mystery novel.
Yeah.
That is, and why? Why do people feel compelled to do that? I don't
Yeah.
Because they're
understand
trolls. They're trolls.
it. Maybe, but I think some people are just clueless.
No, I
Although
think
John does pick up. John has got a nice pack of jackals that follow
Yeah.
him around.
Yeah.
He's got trolls that
Oh
follow him
no,
around.
but I'm thinking of like this mystery novel that I read, and I had looked at the reviews because it was a new to me author, and I actually wound up buying it and reading it because of this review. Because this review, I was like, that's not a nice thing to do to
anybody.
author.
Yeah.
And but reading it, it was literally like someone had said, do a book report, and that's what they did.
Yeah.
And then you have Winklered. Book has words. I could understand book. Works as advertised. 3 stars.
Hey, I mean, if
It
that's
Did not contain live badger. Moving
Yeah.
on. 4 stars.
My mom recommended a book the other day, and
Oh.
Mom and I's reading tastes diverge.
Yeah.
But this one, she'd shared a little snippet of it in the Discord, and it caught my attention enough that I actually went and looked it up, and I read. She had shared a snippet of book 2 of the series, so I read book 1, which was enjoyable. Book 2 went in weird directions because it's a historical, like a Regency romance, and the author was trying very hard to give her characters reasons for fitting into modern mentalities.
Oh God, one of those.
Right. But she was
Ugh.
aware, and you could tell that the author was aware that this is not how people of the Regency era would actually have
No.
thought. That just culturally they wouldn't have thought this, but this author didn't feel comfortable, I guess, I'm guessing, with writing your usual Regency era heroine's age
Yeah.
involved in a romance. So she had to really stretch so that all of her female main character that were falling in love were over 21, which is a ridiculously
Spinsters?
yes, ridiculous age
Yeah.
for a Regency era
Yeah.
wedding to be happening at, because they were going out debuting at
14.
17. Well, not 14. That was too young to be out. The presentation, I believe, the earliest was ever done was 16, and usually it was 17.
Yeah.
There was an age range, but a 17-year-old now is considered a minor, and if you write that into a Regency romance, your modern reader goes, "Ew, ick, gross." Yeah. Whereas the people that understand that there is a cultural difference are like,
They were almost old maids at 17.
Well, no, not 17.
Yeah.
But if they weren't married by the time they were 19, we're talking upper crust aristocracy. There was a window there. But yeah, you're right. If you're talking about the lower class in England at the time, 17, she would have been married and probably had a kid.
If not two.
Right.
Because most of them were married at 14 or 15.
And that's unthinkable to your modern.
Well, they were doing the same thing
viewpoint.
Here in the West.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I know.
In the 1800s, 1840s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s.
My mother-in-law was married at 15.
Yeah.
And had my husband at age 17.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's not that many generations back.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that unusual.
Yeah.
So
and that's what people don't understand. They don't bother to read enough history to understand.
Well, I think this author did, but she was also trying to find a way to thread the needle between pissing off modern readers and coming up with reasons that she could do this historically without making it sound like she was completely imposing the modern, because there's a lot of readers that will complain, and which is where the review thing comes in with the Regencies that are your modern Millie, thoroughly modern Millie, but thrown back into Regency times. But that's where you come in with research. And you also, if you are choosing to write a historical, you have to make that decision of, am I going to make this a historical fantasy? Not including magic, just it's going to be my way, but
my way or the highway.
Call it historical, or do you write an actual historical?
Yeah. Suburban Banshee says, grandmother on one side got married at 15 or 16. I think a baby was involved, plus eloping to Kentucky. Oh, yeah. And then Nancy said, when she was visiting her sister in Korea in 1990s, students were amazed that Nancy was so generous to let the little sister be married before she was.
Before she got married.
And that, is, again, not unusual for that time period.
Yeah, exactly. If you go back and you actually read, which is what I kind of took a pet at the Regency. And
I just caught Cedar staring meaningfully at the fidget widget, so I'm going to put it away.
Thank you.
I went back and I started grabbing some books that were actually written in the era.
Yeah.
Because it's a very different.
Jonna appears to take toys away.
But you had your blog post with the links to various research things. So that's something that an author could do well to bookmark.
Yeah.
But also they should probably read from the era, even fiction from the era, to get a better idea of people's thought patterns.
Yeah.
If they're going to write an actual historical.
Yeah. Uh, for the West, one of the things is monographs.
Yeah.
Uh, there, they are out there. A lot of universities, especially Texas north and west of us, have monographs in the collections at the universities.
There's not a lot of Texas to the north of us.
States to the north of us. Left out a word. But that. Yeah, I can say that.
Uh-huh.
But those monographs tell the stories of John Q. Public as the frontier expanded. And many of them are not pretty.
Yeah.
You know, the reality of the Santa Fe Trail, or
Take your
you
head
just
off.
stop it. Santa Fe Trail, the Oregon Trail. You know, there were more than a few instances of wagons and furniture scattered alongside the trail
Oh yeah.
Oh,
and unmarked graves.
yeah, that's, I mean, more tragic, I think, than the
Yeah.
furniture is the unmarked grave.
You never know how many people died out there. How many people, the younger brother, the younger sister, the older brother, the older sister,
Mm-hmm.
left to go west.
Yep.
Never got there.
Yep.
The a lot of museums will and historical societies will have letters home.
Yeah.
Some of the more fascinating ones are letters home from Civil War soldiers.
Yeah.
Bless you.
Sarah says, elder sister getting married first is biblical. Yes.
Yes. And there are good practical reasons for elder sister to get married before younger sister gets married. But to go back to doing research, for me, looking at how people thought at
Yeah.
the time, the letters are the way to go.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you look at letters that people never intended for other people to read,
Yeah.
I mean, if you're looking at the letters of a statesman, he knew people were probably going to read that.
Yeah.
But if you look at like the letters between John and Abigail Adams,
Yeah.
There's a book that's just their letters back
Yeah.
and forth. And it is really cool because, first of all, it's a love story.
Yeah.
Which gets me. I mean, but also this is an elder statesman, and these are letters that weren't intended to be archived and
Yeah.
read. So you get a glimpse into thought processes and patterns, and also how much influence his wife had on him.
The stories from like Private T. Rutherford,
Yeah.
of the 7th Confederate Army,
Mhm.
home to his mother, are fantastic reading.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's even worse when you realize that there aren't any after a certain date.
Yeah. Well, it's like my son asked me to keep his letters home from boot camp, which I'm doing. Not that I think they'll ever have any historical value other than as his personal history. If he winds up having a kid someday,
Yeah.
sitting down with his kid when they're in their teens and old enough to look at what their father was like,
Here's where I was stupid.
or
It's
to
just,
or to share with his wife down the road.
Yeah. it's just like the monograph that I got from my neighbor.
Mhm.
Great grandfather was a Texas Ranger in the late 1800s.
Yeah.
And his talking about this area specifically.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, when Vernon was the big town in this part
Oh,
of
yeah.
Texas.
Hmm.
And Roundtrees was where all the cattle were. And everybody looks and goes, Roundtrees, where's that? It's where Seymour is now.
Yeah. Yeah. Names change.
Yeah. Names change.
Yeah.
We currently live in what used to be called Daggett Switch.
Okay.
And Camp Wichita was actually Lawton,
Mm-hmm.
Fort Sill. It was not here.
Yeah. Which kind of makes sense with the Wichita Mountains and
Yeah.
Being up there.
Yeah.
No, it's really cool. And the other thing too, and I just started reading a book called Most Secret War, and it's basically scientific developments through World War II,
Yeah.
with an emphasis on radar. Dad was a radar operator, so I thought that was interesting and picked it up.
Yeah.
But he made a comment in basically the introductory part of the book that I grabbed and shared on Substack as a tip for world building.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing you can get, especially if you're writing science fiction and space opera and you're setting up galactic empires, is reading history books will give you a better idea of how humans have acted time and time again throughout the ages of the Roman Empire, the British Empire, the Americans. This with the most secret war, the comment that he made was that it would take the first 6 months of the war to replace all of the people that had risen to high levels of power but
Mhm.
didn't actually have
Any knowledge to be there.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. They were inadequate to fill those positions, but during times of peace, that's how it works.
Yeah.
And that's a universal. It's not just World War II.
I want to go back to one thing here, talking about the furniture. Suburban Banshee says, yep, losing the furniture really messed with people, but on the other hand, they couldn't have known. I would disagree with that statement, Suburban Banshee, in that they were by and large told by the wagon masters to carry only what they needed across the plains, because the wagon masters knew what it took to get across. And Conestoga built the wagons. Well, first it was Conestoga, then it was Studebaker. Built the wagons to go across the plains. And most of them were oxen hitched. Although you watch the shows, they all show horses.
Oxen.
It was almost always oxen because A, more stable, B, could pull more, and C, you could eat them if you had to.
And they didn't die because it was Thursday.
Good point. But
Well,
the
thing-
people that would load up a friggin' piano
yeah.
and try to take it.
Well, because if you tell someone only take what you need,
Yeah.
people's definition of need.
Yes, that's
Well-
exactly it.
Also, once the whole moving west became the thing,
Yeah.
like anything else, because humans are rotten bastards, like anything else, when it became the thing, the scammer showed up.
Yep.
And the number of people that would show up at frontier cities, frontier outposts, claiming to be wagon guides,
Yeah. Especially St. Louis. Yeah.
who weren't. Chicago first, then St. Louis, then that weren't. And they say, yeah, sure, bring that, that'll work. And you'd get, 3 weeks out and it didn't work.
Yeah, because they had their gentility and status was part of their furniture mentally. Yeah, it was stupid, but there again, it's human nature, because that was them. It wasn't about who they were, it wasn't about their clothes, it was that furniture.
Great grandma's
Yeah.
4-poster oak bed.
And those pieces of furniture were real wood. They were not the light, cheap shit we have today. By
Because the
and large.
light, cheap stuff didn't exist.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about it. We have modern equivalents now. The coyotes that people pay
Yep.
for transport
Mhm.
across the border,
Yeah.
People are
Um,
rotten bastards. It's-
and they'll take the money and then vanish into the desert and leave people to die.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bodies out there, I'm told.
Oh, yeah.
So it's one of those things of, once again, human nature. You can take these things as a writer and use them to make a very successful story that resonates well as being real.
Yeah.
Because you're not trying to change human nature to fit what you think the heroine should be the right age
Yeah.
in order to go ahead and get married.
Yeah.
Because that's not how that works.
Oh, and another excellent point Nancy just brought up. Donner Party disaster. David Bach wants to know what you're mutilating
It's a
over here.
monkey, David. Did you have to ask? But it's a quiet mutilation, so
Apparently, if I do it quietly, the monkey isn't screaming. Everybody doesn't get their noses out of joint.
the
Uh,
Donner Party.
but Nancy's point's an excellent one. The Donner Party disaster was partially a result of stupid guidebook written by somebody who'd gone west to east at a different time of year. So they never mentioned snow in Donner, Truckee, any of that area.
Mhm.
Whereas anybody that had been out there a winter knew that those passes were you could not get through the pass.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there's a picnic area called Donner.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've been there.
Yeah, so have I.
Donner, party of 12. Donner, party of 11.
Yeah.
Donner, party of 10.
Oh,
Yeah, good point, Dan. David Drake mentioned in the intro to the Spark being knowledgeable about the Roman Empire. Charlemagne and King Arthur would give you a good knowledge base to build on. Yes, that's what David did with most of his stories.
Mhm.
They were written based on historical battles
yes.
that he brought forward in time,
Hmm.
and that was the story.
Yep.
You could actually go back if you know enough. If you know enough, you can go back and figure out which ancient battles those are. Yeah, so Celia Hayes wrote a good book about the party going over that pass that survived to Truckee's Trail. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah, Celia's research is impeccable.
yes.
Alma. If you want to research, read what Alma Boykin's
Yeah.
doing.
Oh, yeah.
Alma Boykin's an excellent example of taking the research and using it to build a new world, a new story.
Yeah.
Celia wrote more actual historical
Yeah.
stuff. And because there's a difference between taking history and using it to create a new story.
Yeah.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And then there's the real, actual historical stuff that is based in reality. The ones I quibble about are the ones that fall in between.
Yeah. But those are also very hard to write because you're treading that fine line,
Oh, yeah.
and when you bring actual historical figures in,
Mm-hmm.
you have to treat those very carefully.
Yeah.
That's one advantage of writing, space stuff is,
Yeah.
you can throw friends in and make them whatever you want to make them,
Mm-hmm.
Sergeant.
Spot on there.
But the other thing, too, is that you can take your historical figure and warp him while still using
Yeah.
the basis in reality
Yeah.
to become something else in a space opera setting. It's a little easier.
Well, that's the Sten series.
Yeah.
Alan Cole and Chris Bunch.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The whole thing is every book is a thinly veiled retelling of a certain period in world, if not U.S. history.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Fleet of the Damned or Revenge of the Damned is the World War II Pacific campaign.
Yeah.
With a little of the European theater thrown in. Vortex is the Benghazi, or no, I'm sorry, Beirut, the 1980s rise of the Muslim idiots.
Yeah.
All very good. If you haven't read it yet, the Sten series is really good. If nothing else, read it for the Easter eggs.
There are a bunch of them in there.
Every year I reread that series, I find an Easter egg I didn't notice before.
The difference is, how come when I do research for a modern day cross country trip, y'all look at me weird, but the Donner Party wings it and they get the
Yeah.
annual barbecues. We can throw you a barbecue when you get here.
Yes, I will happily throw you a barbecue when
Yeah.
you get here. And given what you're doing differs, I'm not looking at you weird. I'm looking at you with awe.
Yeah.
Because wow, woman.
Winkle Red, they're out there online. You can find them.
So actually, the that ties into Ben's homework for intern Steve.
Yeah.
Which
Right.
just went up on the Back Press Substack.
Substack. Yeah.
I did not know about the Tim Powers books that take the historical figures and weave the supernatural into it. So I have now bought one, but to see if
Ben
I like
Yallow
it.
strikes again.
Well, he does this,
Yeah, he does.
and I trust him, so I will buy things happily that he recommends.
Tiffany goes, thanks differs. Now I'm sitting here visualizing a creature horror centered on the idiot celebrating the Donner Party and getting stranded. Write it.
Donner,
Yes.
party of 6.
Party of 5.
Well, the Tim Powers book that Ben recommended to intern Steve deals with the Bronte sisters,
Mhm.
and I had actually, oh gosh, I don't remember if I read a book or listened to a podcast or what, but talking about the history of that particular family.
Yeah.
And it is a tragic.
You don't need to throw much supernatural in there
No,
for
you
a
do
tragedy
not.
in that family.
It is. I mean, and that's the
Ugh.
thing is that there's so much fodder out there.
Yeah.
For writing these interesting stories. Speaking of podcasts, a big one in the industry has been all the podcasts that proliferate about the missing people, unsolved mysteries kind
Yeah.
of things. And there are an awful lot of people that have just dropped off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
And you
Yep.
can easily, I don't know that I'd want to do anything modern as far as making it into a story, but there's certainly some that are back 100 years that could get blended into a
Yeah.
story.
One of the creepier things that Jim Butcher did, and I think by accident, but just creepy as hell, was to state that if you take the missing persons figures for the United States as a whole,
Mm-hmm.
that's about the loss rate of prey species in Africa
Yeah.
with predators in the area, and that is creepy as hell.
Because who's to say there's not a prey species out there
Predator species
or predator species?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And you're right, Dawn. People do disappear all the time.
Mm-hmm.
trust me.
We've seen it.
Yep. And I think all three of us have trained in and participated in search and rescue.
Yeah.
The human body takes up an amazingly small amount of space.
Yep.
And-
David is talking about the Sten series. I don't mind the last two. However, most people just read it to Return of the Emperor. And quite honestly, that's a good story arc. I like the last two because they have a certain amount of relevance to icky parts of my past. But if you want to just read everything up to Return of the Emperor, you're fine.
Yeah. Suburban Banshee, good example of fell in the water. This happened in late 70s, early 80s. Sten, as in Sten gun, yes. Nancy. I went back home for a visit between one of my overseas trips, and was at lunch with some friends that were law enforcement, and got to talking about weird finds, and one of the sheriff said, "Yeah, we just had one 2 weeks ago." I kind of looked at him and said, "What?" And he mentioned this specific location, and I went, hell, we dove that water back in the 60s as kids. He says, "Yeah." He said, "You missed a car." And I looked at him and went, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, there was a car down there." I went, "What do you mean there was a car?" He said, "There was a car in there from 1953. It was a soldier who had left Fort Sill, going home on leave, and never showed up."
So I recently discovered there's a whole bunch of YouTube channels that specialize in guys who volunteer to wander around with fish sonar and find sunken cars.
Yep.
And there's places where it's kind of obvious that you're going to find them, sharp curves.
Yeah.
And
Right.
especially where there wasn't a guardrail, even if there is now. Big cities. I'm thinking that they were diving in something like Chicago and they found 20 odd cars.
Yeah.
Chicago.
Well, yeah, but also just higher population, you're more likely to find vehicles, but they were finding vehicles that had people in them. And there's also a lot of cars that had been stolen, taken out joyriding, and then driven into the river
dumped.
or lake or whatever. insurance fraud. So you've got all kinds of these vehicles, and if the water visibility is poor, they're down there for decades, and some of these were surprisingly shallow.
Well, this is a Blackwater Creek.
Mm-hmm.
Suburban Banshee, people did tend, if they were in a sunken car, to get in the trunk, because that was one of the last places with air, because it had a bigger air pocket. And in the older cars, you could pull the top of the rear seat down, and it was basically straight into the trunk.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't any bracing back there.
Well, and the other thing too is that I think, because they've talked a couple of times, they recommend the window breakers like Ian has, because he said that those save lives, because you get into the water and car starts to go down.
Yeah.
And I'll often find people in the back of the vehicle.
Yeah.
Mary Jo Kopechne is a classic example.
Yeah. And they trying to get out, but they can't open a door because water's heavy. And they can't just break out a window because it's not easy to break a car window.
No.
And the whole headrest thing that went around on TikTok a while back is stupid.
Yeah.
It does not work. Don't do it. Don't even try it. It's stupid.
I don't even.
There was some idiot TikToker did something about pulling the headrest off
Mm-hmm.
and then using the brace to knock out a window.
Oh.
Yeah.
It don't work that way.
No.
Does not work that way.
No.
One, most of your modern cars, by the time you hit the roof of the car before the headrest comes off the seat. You actually have to lay the seat down to get the headrest off.
Yeah.
Second, if you don't have a sharp point on that headrest, it doesn't break the window. It doesn't shatter the window.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The windows are designed to not break.
Yeah.
So unless you've got a proper tool for it. I mean, I watched, so when my kids, I'm trying to remember what I had 2 babies in the van and I was pregnant. And we had the AC running because it was hot. We were unloading the van, and on his way out, my ex hit the lock. And so we had 2 babies in the running van, but they were locked in. And my oldest was 2.5, I think, about the time. Not quite old enough to get herself out of her car seat because she was still all buckled in.
Yep.
And even if she had, I'm not sure we could have coached her through how to open a car window.
Yeah.
So the police and the fire department show up because we're in a little tiny town and everybody's concerned. They were very sweet. And they were trying to break the window on the van, and they had one of those little center punch tools, and all that did was bounce off of it and leave like scrape marks on the window.
Yep.
You got to know how to use those.
Right. Well, so they had switched the turnout gear jacket on our firefighter. They draped it across his front and were protecting him, and he's rearing back and getting ready to swing a fire axe into one of the small windows so he could get in. And this guy pulls up in a little sedan, pops out and hollers, "Stop, wait." And he comes over, and he's not moving in a hurry because he's silver-haired and he's got an age on him and arthritis. And he has this monstrous thing of keys, and he's flipping through it as he walks. And he comes up and he tries a key, and then he tries another key, and it works.
Yeah.
And then he gets the door on the van open, and I mean, we had scrapes on the window, but that was it from that little adventure. But that was a whole long drawn out thing. Had the children actually been in danger, we would have had to resort to the axe a lot sooner, but still.
If you're going to get the Rescue Me, RESQME, Rescue Me is the tool I recommend. But if you're going to get a window breaker seat cutter tool, one, you need seat cutter.
Yeah.
Seatbelt cutter?
Seatbelt cutter. And if you get the window breaker seatbelt cutter, what you want to do is on a short piece of 550 cord, preferably fluorescent, hang it from the inboard side of the headrest on the passenger seat.
Yeah.
That way, it's accessible from all 4 seats. A lot of people put them on their keychain, which is great unless you're in the back seat.
Mm-hmm.
And then having to get over the guy in the front seat to get the seatbelt cutter. Well,
yeah. Well, and the other thing too is that people don't realize when you're in an accident, and if you're going into water's heavy, which means when you hit it
Yeah.
hard, then your front end of your vehicle is going to be smashed up. But there's also a lot flying around the cabin of the vehicle at
Yeah.
that point. So if you have it loose somewhere, chances are you're not going to be able to find it.
If it's hanging from the inboard side of the passenger seat headrest on a short piece of cord, all you have to do is reach up, slap the headrest, run your hand down, and you'll come across your tool. Jim probably did this. I did this when I went into government service. I got drown proofed, which is a fucking nightmare.
Yeah. Yes.
And it's
Such fun.
It will. I was drown proofed in a airframe and drown proofed in a vehicle, a ground vehicle, and that gave me nightmares for a while because everybody thinks you don't go anywhere relatively. If you're sitting in the seat, you're still sitting in the seat. If you're buckled in, the seatbelt button doesn't move. When you've rolled and hit the water and it's full of water, you'll be surprised you cannot find that seatbelt.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You cannot find the lock.
Yeah.
You can't. You're sitting there upright. If you're upside down, it was a Chevy Astrovan. If you're upside down, you'll be surprised you can't operate things that
Yep.
you can operate when it's.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've been when they drown proof you, they put you in a simulated vehicle and they roll you down a ramp into water. And you have to wait X number of seconds before you can start doing anything. And they'll tell you to use those seconds to center yourself, which is bullshit. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it
Shock
And the Navy adds
disorientation.
one more twist to that and makes you do it blindfolded.
Yep. And shock and disorientation are a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I've only been in a vehicle that rolled once. I was a child at the time.
Yeah.
And the vehicle actually rolled once, single revolution, and landed back on its wheels and was intact. And my dad basically just kept driving and got us back up out of the ditch and onto the road. This is out, we were in Yukon territory. So we were out in the middle of nowhere. Stopping was not a good idea. And it was also winter. But it was one of those things of Dad just basically rolled with it and went.
Yeah.
I didn't fully understand what had happened until later.
Yeah.
But it's still one of those things where you think you're going to be fine, but the reality is that you're probably not going to be fine. And short of having training like you guys have had, you don't even have anything to give yourself a frame of reference or preparation for this.
the last one I did, the very last one I did, that I didn't panic on and still failed. I did not panic. I was in the back seat of a Suburban. It was a new vehicle at that time. Sitting next to me was a 150-pound dummy, anatomical dummy, seat belted in. And then when it rolled, all the gravel that the bastards had stuck in the back of the Suburban bounced
Came
everywhere.
forward. Yeah.
And I had to get me and that 150-pound dummy out of the water, out of the car and out of the water. And thank God for the rescue divers that stuck the regulator in my teeth, because I blew that one all to hell.
Yeah.
Cameron, there was some talk at one point about having explosive pins and seatbelts to lock them in high impact. That was never reality.
Nope, it's urban legend.
It's urban legend. It was unsafe.
You don't want explosives by your hip.
Really, no.
Yeah, you do not want explosives by your hip.
But yeah, that was mentioned once years and years and years ago, and it's become an urban legend since.
But one of the things I discovered on the whole Suburban dummy gravel incident was totally by accident. A piece of the gravel that was bouncing around in my eyes got into my seatbelt. Got into the seatbelt thing. Jammed the seatbelt.
Yeah.
And I could not. I finally got out of it using my pocket knife, which I lost and never got back, by the way. And then I couldn't get the dummy out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the reality of it, is that most people, if you hit the water, especially if you hit the water at speed, you can try to get out, but there's a number of these rescues where they talk about or I should say recoveries,
Yeah.
where they talk about the fact that they actually found them half in and half out of the
Yeah.
vehicle.
Yeah.
They had almost
Well,
made it.
And something people need to understand: go out and take a look inside your vehicle. How much stuff is loose?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
How much stuff is loose in that vehicle? In mine, not a lot. Well, right now it's full of stuff from Rita's office. But normally I don't have a lot of loose stuff in my vehicle because if I roll it, you get smacked with some, that gallon of water you keep from
Yeah.
emergency smacks you in the head when you roll your vehicle. You are screwed.
Rick, and do not put shiny crystals on your steering wheel
No, don't
or
make
dashboard to make it pretty.
the eternal yeet is a bad idea.
Oh.
Yeah, it becomes a mobile claymore. It's
Yep.
exactly
I was gonna
right.
say, weren't there exploding airbags anyway?
Yeah.
I seem to
Those things
recall.
aren't fun.
No, I have worked a couple accidents where airbags have gone off, and people are totally disoriented.
Oh yeah.
Well, it'll hit you a wallop.
Yeah.
Well,
I
also
mean-
if you drive like this, when the airbag goes off, you do this.
Yeah.
And you break this arm.
Yeah.
The pain is disorienting.
Yeah.
Anyway, enough about negative shit again.
Hang your seatbelt cutter from the inboard
Yeah.
strut of your passenger headrest, where everybody in the car can reach it in case your dumbass is unconscious.
Yeah.
Moving on. Oh, rant.
No.
With the whole tangent online thing, very quickly. Whole tangent online thing, there's somebody go around telling people we only pay for a year.
Oh,
We do not.
Raconteur Press,
Okay, just so you know,
to be specific.
that comment lit a fire under Mike and several other people, so it's now all over Facebook.
Oh, good.
So Mike was truly offended at the.
I was offended. I was pissed off.
Impugning the integrity. So it's kind of taken on a life of its own.
Good.
So
well, who was the asshole?
I don't know. It's just somebody told me.
There's a rumor.
well, it's the
Yeah.
typical rumor thing of jealous people. So
Yeah.
Get your integrity in place, and it won't be a problem.
Yeah.
So
That's one you need to go track somebody down.
Oh yeah.
I have an idea. But you know what?
A punch in the face. A punch in the face knocks that shit off in a hurry.
They don't deserve the attention. They
Well,
can just sit over there and grumble in their corner.
honestly, it's what it is once again, because we've talked more than
Yeah.
once about our business practices
Yeah.
and what Raconteur Press does and doesn't do. And this is just a good excuse for us to be like, look, lay it out for
Yeah.
everybody. This is how we work.
Yeah.
And it's shining a light into a business's practices is a great way to learn.
Yeah.
And this is something that we've been doing with baby authors. There's a number of different places online where the Writer Dojo group, North Texas Troublemakers, the team and more, where if you are interested in submitting to a publisher, to an anthology, or submitting to a publisher with a novel or whatever it is, if you should always do your due diligence on a publisher.
Yeah.
I mean, you two have had epic rants on Vanity Press, but there are publishers out there that mean well and just have absolutely no clue what they're
Yeah.
doing. So
We
the
didn't have a clue
authors-
what we were doing.
we did though have a statement from the beginning of have fun, get paid,
Yeah.
making sure that our authors
Got
made
paid.
a reasonable percentage off of each book. And we're very transparent and always have been. So, but that's the other thing too, which is that don't be afraid as an author, if you're interested in a project, to ask to look at a contract.
Yeah.
We've had authors ask to look at contracts and throw major red flags on it. There's no reversion clause.
Yeah.
And that we've actually seen publishers when the author went back to them and were like, hey, what about rights reversions?
Yeah.
When do I get my story back?
Oh, you don't.
And well, no, in this particular case, the publisher was like, oh crap, missed that. Let's fix it.
Yeah.
And because a lot of small publishers are making it up by the seat of their pants.
Yeah.
And they might miss something. And so ask them to see their contracts, ask them about what happens when your rights revert to you.
Yeah.
Because there are some small publishers out there that do stop paying after a year because at that point,
Most of them do.
they think that the book isn't making enough money to bother breaking out and paying royalties. Now, because of how we do royalties, that never happens. We just pay continuously.
Yeah.
As long as the book is out there,
I
you
know-
get
Well,
paid.
I know.
Now,
Riley's
I've got to make a statement here, though.
Mhm.
The reason that when I was doing the anthologies, I stopped paying after a year
Yeah.
was I ate all the upfront costs.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
But this is
That's-
also part of your business practices that you were telling people
Yeah.
about. It's part of the contract.
Yeah.
and you were upfront about it.
So,
Yeah.
And that's and part of this is people that don't know who I am, don't know who we are,
Yeah.
never met Raconteur Press, and every small and quite frankly large press they've ever met, anthologies for a year. You get paid
Yeah.
for a year.
Yeah.
If you don't get upfront, you pay for a year, and that's
Yeah.
it. That's what everybody does. And I understand that a lot of times, in a lot of these cases, over the questions I've been getting, it came innocently.
Mhm.
But for God's sake, if you don't know Raconteur Press, don't answer questions for us.
Yeah.
Send them to our Substack or our Facebook, and we'll answer the questions.
Yeah.
You've got me, you've got Cedar, you've got Jonna, you've got Rita. We're all over. You got Mike and Intern Steve. We're all over Facebook. Just ask us a question. We're all over social media.
Yeah.
Ask us a question, we'll answer it. Don't listen to Joe Cornfed down on the block,
Yep.
who once published with Tor Online and got screwed over, and now thinks that it applies to us. It doesn't.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too, which is that it's not difficult to find our email addresses. Publisher at raconteurpress.com will get Ian. And
Production will get Jonna, and she'll probably answer faster than I will.
right. And design
And
will
much
get
more
you me.
politely.
I don't know why anybody's asking me questions.
I
But,
don't bet on the polite part. But also the other thing too is something why James agreed to work with us is he was like, so how do you pay? And I said, we use PubShare. And then I pulled up my phone and I pulled up my PubShare account and I handed it to him
Yeah.
and said, you can look at any of my numbers.
Yeah.
You can look at all my numbers because we're completely open about that. And he's like, what?
Yeah.
Yep.
I said, no, really, I'll show you how much I'm getting and how many books we've sold and everything because
Yep.
we don't lie about that.
Yeah.
And we don't see any reason that information needs to be private.
It
No,
doesn't.
it's not.
It
Well,
doesn't.
and this is where the paradigm shift of what we're doing is, which is that with PubShare, the dashboard that all of our authors get is the publisher's dashboard.
Same one we get.
It's the same one that the publishers see. It's very similar to the KDP because I'm an independent publisher, so I have my own Amazon
Yeah.
KDP dashboard where you can get all kinds of nifty reports and breakdowns and see a lot of
Yeah.
detail about what books are selling, when, where, why. And with PubShare, you can, as an author, if you are in a project, you get to see how many of that book sells. You can track day
How
by
many-
day
how many
if you
pages are
want.
read.
Yeah.
How many pages are read if it's in Kindle Unlimited. It's completely open to you, and
Mhm.
it is. I mean, a lot of new authors find it very addictive.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will say one caveat: we are open with the numbers that we get from Amazon. If Amazon's diddling the numbers,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we don't. But if Amazon does, we're kind of sorry.
Yeah.
Right, and with that being said, any company can do that. And
Yeah.
Oh,
there's,
yeah.
because we're not going to do direct sales because that's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah.
Um,
We don't have the back office to support it.
No,
None of
yeah.
us
right,
do.
no, we don't, and that's why Talk at PubShare is
What happened? I missed
Oh,
something. What?
Jonna's expression.
Oh, okay.
Well, folks, we've wasted another hour of your time. And we only got 20 likes out of this today.
37 people, 20 likes.
Well, we did have 40 at one
I
point.
just
I
don't
guess
know.
we're running people off now.
I don't know if it's worth it. I mean, we can't get likes. Why are we doing this?
Because people have threatened us.
If people aren't going to if they're not going to like the videos, I don't know why we even do this. Oh, look, 27. We're from 2027.
Because I would like to continue living, even as broke as I am. Thank you very much.
38, where? 38 watching and only 28 likes. So, well,
Y'all have a good weekend, folks. And remember, as always, don't pet the sweaty stuff. Don't sweat the petty stuff. We'll see you next week.
y'all be safe.
Bye.
Bye.
People threaten us if we stop. Yes, Don, we
Yeah,
agree.
no kidding.
We need to talk, Don.
Oh dear.